Imagine a diplomatic summit turned medical mystery, where humans' iron-rich blood sparks chaos among alien species. Will junior xenobiologist Exel unravel the secret to save lives, or will protocol doom them all? Just a quick reminder before we get started. Only 4% of my viewers have subscribed to the channel so far. If you enjoy the content, I'd really appreciate it if you could take a moment to hit that subscribe button and support the channel. Thank you so much. Now
Not
start the
most
amazing
conspicuous start,
story.
Mother Bear responded when the ship's captain asked her how she liked the assignment so far. Protecting a cargo ship is not how the stories of great knights often start. Even if the cargo ship was passing through Grixie space, and even if Terran-Grixie relations were not the warmest, this job was going to be too boring to be worth the bother for the experienced knights. You'll forgive me if I don't want to part of a great story. The captain responded, much rather make the run, get paid, and go home to my wife. You know what I meant. Mother Bear responded. The captain could not help but note the flat affect of her voice, the distant look in her eyes, or the lack of emotion in her face. He had not spent much time around knights and found the effect uncomfortable. Only reason. You're here is because the guys who own this ship think we'll be attacked by pirates. Speaking of, manifest, she ordered with a hand out. The captain handed her a data stick and she turned to walk away. Call me if there's any issues, she instructed. The logistics company thought there might be pirates because the ship was full of weapons. The amount of kit on the unarmored, unarmed, unescorted cargo ship still dumbfounded her. There was everything from knives and rifle rounds to walking tanks and the newest air superiority fighters from Terra. You could equip a legion with the amount of gear on board. The whole thing stunk to Mother Bear. Her pay was not much, but there were other costs that came with hiring a knight. Even one of their first mission was an expensive proposition. There were donations to her monastery and her academy, for one. The Empire does not give up its multi-tools for nothing. It would have been cheaper and more effective to deal with. Pirates to hire escort fighters. Mother Bear decided to work out to clear her mind and had 68 kilos over her head when something occurred to her. This could be an insurance scam. There were other explanations, but it was an option. It made a kind of sense. Sorry, we tried everything. We even hired a knight. She dropped the weight and double-checked that she had loaded her handgun. No, she concluded. That was absurd. But there was something she was not being told. When she finished her workout, she stalked down the halls of the city-scale cargo ship. Her keycard would let her get anywhere on board, and she planned to put it to use as she investigated as many of the ship's nooks and crannies as she could. She borrowed a crowbar and opened a crate in the cargo hold. Mother Bear was almost surprised to find it full of guns. She was doing an action check on one when a warehouse worker asked what the fuck she thought she was doing. Inspecting your cargo, she answered and gestured to the badge of her position that declared her a knight to be referred to by the nom de guerre Mother Bear. She broke the barrel and looked down it, which confirmed nothing was obstructing it. She put the box back together and went to a crate of rifle rounds. The crate was labeled green tip, which would mean regular live ammo, but it was actually full of crimped tipped blanks. A box labeled black tip, armor-piercing rounds, was also full of blanks. Tank rounds that were wooden training rounds. Back at the box with the rifles, she field-stripped one and found it was missing its firing pin. The action would work, but it would never actually fire. Mother Bear reassembled the rifle, put it back, and grabbed a tiffin box. She sat on one of the crates and looked out over the rows and rows of them while she ate. Were they all like this? She was being lied to, given bad intelligence. But why? What was going on? Would the captain know more than her? Would he tell her if he did? She had plenty of questions, but no idea where to get the answers. Why are you hovering about? The captain demanded the next day. Can you think of a better place to learn about incoming vessels? Mother Bear demanded without looking up from her book. A history of the Grixie. I can forward sensors to your tablet. You can even view the internal security cameras if you want. I like this way better, but you should do that anyways. He grumbled, but did as she instructed. The book opened with an extract of History is Fractal and the Problem of Translation. She decided to read the section, even if the Knights Academy required numerous reads and essays about the book. People rarely consider how much their knowledge of their own language, history, and culture shapes their ability to learn about another. Consider a student of Roman history learning Chinese history. They can assume that who succeeds an emperor will be important. They can assume that the emperor is not making every Decision. They can assume that a large empire is multi-ethnic, multilingual, and multi-faith, and tolerated such differences. But do you have any reason to believe that this is true for a sentient non-human society? How much do you think your knowledge of human history, language, and culture would translate to a species that does not have what humans recognize as a language? Consider the Kickvod, a eusocial species, like bees on Terra. One of their leaders, what could be called a queen, can create millions of drones. For the Kickvod, the entire notion of a civil war is an alien concept with nothing comparable in their recorded history. The human tribes unified after the last war. The Kickvod unified when their queens agreed to. Their government, if that word is accurate, exists above all else to contain the ambitions of the several thousand queens. Further consider the Zonkru, a hive mind species. Kings, presidents, republics, all are foreign concepts. Their history was of societies acting in mutual self-interest. They could have millions of members and needed no orders. Their final unification was an orgy as their different hive minds fucked their way into a new generation that would share a single mind. Knights. That is an interesting example. Something akin to a knight-errant has existed in almost every human. Culture. They may have had a specific job or a specific master, or have been from a specific social class, but this person wanders around righting wrongs and fighting monsters is a concept practically unique to humans. How would a Grixie understand? The role of Mother Bear? To humans, the idea of a knight is not an unusual concept. An elite fighter who works for a colony, but under their own direction, doing anything from security to delivering the mail makes sense. You need someone to exert the colony's authority. In the great chasm of space, right? How do the auto-translates even handle it? Do they call her heavy cavalry mother large mammal, perhaps? That night, Mother Bear woke with a start. The stink of burning bodies in her nose and tears running down her cheeks. She retrieved the family portrait she kept and looked into their faces. She had printed the picture out. Something about that made it feel more real, more permanent. As if physical things like them are somehow more permanent and less able to be, well, eventually the proximity sensors alerted. Someone had left debris in the star lane, forcing them to stop to clear it. That was when beacons from other ships started coming in. The beacons were not coming from the star lane, but heading towards it. First one beacon, then a second, a third, a fourth. The ship slowed to sublight speed and let the crew see what was heading to them. 2 cargo ships, a heavy cruiser, and a fighter carrier. The cargo ship finished clearing the star lane right as the so-called pirates put themselves into torpedo range. Excellent timing, Mother Bear announced as she put a bookmark in. I want some answers. What? The captain demanded. What answers? We're about to be attacked, you asshole. Go do your job. No, none of the cargo works. The vehicles are missing parts of their suspensions, which would only be noticeable off-road. I want to know why. That's classified. But if you found tracking devices in some of the boxes and concluded we wanted the pirates to take the equipment so we could track them, but not give pirates usable tanks and artillery, that would not be my fault. She had found something, but was not sure what they were. Tracking devices made sense now, but at the time assumed it was something for the dock workers. Is that why you hired a knight instead of escort fighters? We also hired escort fighters, he answered while looking ready to burst a blood vessel, but the pirates never show up if they can see the fighters. You were supposed to delay. And why not tell me? Because I'm the only one who knows, and that's so I can coordinate with the escort fighters. The less people who know, the lower the odds anything gets leaked. Any other questions? Or would you like to do your job? Well, she put her book on the chair and picked up her tablet. These are clearly not pirates, and everything else about the job was a lie. I would actually be well within my rights to refuse to help. At all. Mother Bear paused long enough for the vein in his forehead to about to burst. But, she said as she stood up, buy me some time and I'll see what I can do. She grabbed her rifle and sprinted to the cargo hold. Of course, these were not pirates. This is the problem of knowledge, approaching these Xenos from the lens of human history. By the time she finished her work, the not pirates had already connected an umbilical and were boarding the cargo ship. Mother Bear used her tablet to observe the light blue-skinned Grixie. They moved through the corridors in groups of 4. 1. Group of 10 walked up the main thoroughfare. The crew all kept their distance except the guards who followed in parallel. Mother Bear grabbed her gear and headed out. Mother Bear set up her tablet at the far end of the hallway. The group 10 walked down. She locked the bolt back, fed the belt from the box into the gun, and slammed the bolt forward. She put the heavy ear protection halfway on and set up the tablet next to her position and held the trigger of the microphone. Attention all aboard. This is the Night Mother Bear. I have a message for any uninvited guests currently aboard. I am ready to accept your offers of surrender. From the monitor, she saw the Knot Pirates joking at the idea that a single individual was a threat to them. There's an intercom to your left, she announced for the group of 10, if you would like to formally surrender. And what are you going to do to make us? Demanded one of the Knot Pirates through the intercom. Well, Mother Bear answered while she put her ear protection on. I know something you don't know. Put your hands on the bulkheads and I'll show you. The Knot Pirates looked to each other, but did as she instructed, opening up a big gap in their position. Now, their leader demanded over the intercom. What do you know? Mother Bear pointed the gun down the hallway, held the microphone over the gun's action, and squeezed off a few rounds. They would be able to see the muzzle flash, so they would know she was in fact firing a gun on the thin-skinned cargo ship. Blanks make a different sound when fired, and anyone who has heard the real thing fire enough can tell right away when they hear blanks. But the sound of the action over the speakers would be too loud for anyone to notice, even if they could tell the difference. It was a good thing the machine gun in her rifle used the same firing pin. Mother Bear smirked as the Knot Pirates panicked. Firing a gun, let alone what had to be a large caliber machine gun, inside a thin-skinned cargo ship was almost suicidal. When their leader went back to the intercom, Mother Bear let off another few rounds. She waited another beat before talking. Again, I know that I have a machine gun, Mother Bear told them. Now, would you like to discuss the terms of your surrender? It took little to get them to drop their weapons, take off the shirts, and walk backwards to her. She let the guards cuff and detain the Knot Pirates. Their leader, who she recognized as a member of the royal family, got a look at the machine gun's belt hanging as she approached. Mother Bear was not positive, but she believed the expression he had was of recognition, and then respect. Are you one of them? The leader demanded. Is this the cleverness and skill of the armored fist? Hadn't expected that translation, Mother Bear answered, before adding, First mission too? Mother Bear's presence was enough to get the other Knot Pirates to drop their stun batons and surrender so the regular guards could detain them. Even if she only appeared with a rifle, having put the firing pin back, we have to return them, Mother Bear informed the captain. Why? He demanded. They're pirates. With more ships, then, I'd expect. They aren't pirates. This is a dagger raid. She held her book up. A what? This is their military? The guy in charge? That's basically a general, stealing weapons and ammunition from another. State is not an act of war to them. It's ritualized. There are rules of fair conduct. They show up without guns. We catch them and scare their leader. They surrender. Those are the rules. Now we have to return them. And if we don't, that is an act of war. The captain considered this, which Mother Bear did not like. I'm not actually giving you a choice, by the way, she told him. You release them, or I'll do it myself before that cruiser sinks us. But the escort fighters are about to. No. Mother Bear unholstered her handgun. I'm not letting. You start a fucking war. Now start Assam next story. In caution is wisdom, so even if this was a Phobos station and deep in their space, I slipped into the bar while someone else opened the door. I scanned the room before entering further. A number of Phobos, neutral to hostile, by themselves or in groups, a few groups of humans, unpredictable, and a Nandan, hostile, avoid if possible, drinking by himself. The Nandan, great big things with curved horns and fangs that hang from their mouths, seem to have a particular distrust of Gennels. Beyond what could be justified by our strange reputation as carrion eaters and scavengers, the Nandan had a habit of outright hatred for Gennels. The barman was a Phobos, though, so I decided to just get something to go while I waited for my ship. To be refueled. Ale and sandwich, please, I ordered. But the barman just stared me down. I dropped the creds on the bar top in disgust at this again. The barman took my money and started to ring up my order. I took a seat and scanned the bar. A comfortable size for the medium-sized species, like the Phobos and humans, but it felt claustrophobically large to me. The humans in the bar took no note of me, some of the Phobos kept stealing glances at me, and the Nandan was staring at me. Excellent. You should make sure those aren't forgeries. The Nandan boomed. If half of what I've heard about them are true, it would be prudent. This drew the attention of the bar to himself. and then to me. Excellent, but I noticed. The wording he used? Had he ever met a general before? It seemed unlikely. By the stars, I thought to myself, he's going to get me kicked out of another bar over things he has heard only as rumor. Be nice, a human instructed. To that, the Nandan responded. The human who spoke turned and faced the Nandan. Yes, two. The human paused and addressed me. Him? Is that right? Yes, sir. I agreed, and in the quiet, I noticed the murmuring of the favos in the bar. Thank you. The human turned back to the Nandan. Be nice to him? He hasn't done anything to you, or what? The Nandan stood up. The humans, even the ones in a different group, shifted to attention but stayed sitting. We don't need to get all cattywampus over this, the human said. The guy just wants something to eat. Just leave him be and mind your own. And who is going to make me? The Nandan took a step forward and made subtle shifts in his jaw and shoulders from him preparing for violence. Maybe you should just leave. The barman told me. I slipped off the bar stool and took a step to the door. He already paid. Another human said to the barman, I saw it. Are you going to just take his money and kick him out? Why not? The Nandan demanded. He probably stole that money anyways. I did not, I shouted back, but I was taking a step to the door all the same. Sir, the first human said to me, would you like to eat with me and mine? Of course the humans would eat with such a thing. That got more murmurs from the favos. Boy, you really don't have any home training, do you? The human stood up but gestured to his fellows that they should stay seating. The murmurs stopped and the bar was consumed with quiet. I took another step to the door in an irrational hope that if I left the situation would diffuse. What does that mean? The Nandan demanded while he stepped up to the human, making the disparities in their heights and weights apparent. I'm saying you're being very rude to my new friend, and I want you to knock it off. Or what? Would you start a fight over such a thing? You don't know much about humans, do you? The other humans, even the ones who did not appear to be part of the same group, kept their eyes locked on the situation. Some of them shifted, in their seats as if planning to get up. A few gripped their dinner knives. As I looked at the human faces, I noticed they were not looking at each other. There was no coordination happening, and they could not have known this was going to happen. The humans were not, to my knowledge, a hive mind. It was still as if a wave of agreement washed over them, a mutual understanding of what to do. Know your homeworld refuses to fight because you're all cowards. I thought this was interesting. While everyone knew the human central government refused to fight, their colonies also had a reputation for getting involved in wars that were none of their business, and more strange, refusing any sort of compensation. For doing so, Captain, the first human called without looking away from the Nandan, do you have any extra orientation material? Yes, General, another human answered. The Nandan watched the captain walk to the general and pass a data stick to him, which was then offered him. The captain took an odd path. He had been sitting close to the general, but he walked behind and around the table, which brought him next to another table of humans. And a third table. With the Nandan keeping his eyes on the captain, he saw all of the humans and the looks they had. You may wish to familiarize yourself with us. The general informed the Nandan, we all need to learn to mind our Uncle Kenny, especially coward of the county. The Nandan hesitated. He considered his situation. The general made a small movement of the data stick. One thing you may learn, the general told the Nandan, is that we do not have many good experiences that start from a big fella like yourself picking on a little fella like him. And hey, maybe we can all come to an understanding. Maybe we won't have to do things like this anymore. Wouldn't that be nice? The Nandan must have understood that if he pressed the issue, all of the humans in the bar would turn on him. He took the data stick and walked away. It was only much later, after the humans fed me and got me very drunk, when I was able to find the song and understand the threat. Now start another story. Have you read the human orientation material? The general asked in his confident manner when I walked into his office. Yes, sir, I answered, taking my seat. What are your thoughts? It was strange that they included their conceptions of what behavior is normal, acceptable, rude, and offensive, but not what merits a violent response. Also, their strange obsession with telling everyone about their history. How does this fit into their behavior since they became a spacefaring species? Their central government has refused to go to war in the strictest terms, even when others with similar concepts of acceptable behavior would have. But they have those colonies, and some of them have gotten involved in wars. And they have a significant military. I wouldn't want to meet one of their super carrier fleets. It seems no one can convince them to fight a war, though. I see Banta offered them planets to be rearguard during their war over Ziban, and the Terran government refused. They seem to have instead ignored the recruiting of Terrans as mercenaries. And how do these mercenaries perform? I found plenty of positive remarks about their performance. Brave, loyal, clever, willing to call artillery on themselves, to deny their position. I had also heard exciting stories of parties and riots they hold over sports matches and victory in battle, but decided to leave that out. Is there anything else of note about the behavior of the Terrans? The general asked. He was probing me to understand his thoughts. This is the way of command. He verifies the logic of his decisions by seeing if I come to the same conclusions from first principles. The exercise does not end with his first officer. To be effective in testing his logic and building that of his juniors, it must continue the whole way down the chain of command, even to assistants like myself. It also means subordinates understand the reason for all plans. So is an effective method of briefing. I find it interesting how involved they have been in interspecies politics. From what I've gathered, they try to set up free trade deals with every species they encounter, right after begging for history books. Not to mention their constant need to try to mediate any conflict. I would expect a consistent position would be interest in diplomacy and war, or minding their own business and refusal to fight. The mix they have is strange. What conclusion would you draw from these facts? Their government is afraid of what war at this scale would do to their kind, or they are hypocritical. They may be trying to negotiate their way into a position of dominance in the galaxy at only the cost of others. How do you explain the tolerance of their colonies going to war and of recruiting mercenaries? That is something I had not considered, but I found a reason with ease. They wish to have an experienced corps of soldiers and officers if forced into conflict. Does that align with their history? Were you expecting me to read the history they included in their orientation material? I panicked. Merely a joke. Who cares about the history of some Xenos? He took a drink before continuing. How do you believe they would react if someone attacked them? If we bombed? Titan, for example? I was silent. How would they react? I probed my mind instances of direct aggression against humans. There was a pirate attack on one of their colonies. I offered. They demonstrated a supreme ability to defend themselves against a force with superior numbers. Another colony sent legions to fight for the Renvada during the incineration. The humans there demonstrated an ability to engage in large-scale, long-term warfare. If attacked, I think the Terrans could fight back effectively. But I could not be more specific. I had read reports that could have helped me shape my speculation on how they would respond, but these were from gossip and rumor. Humans evolved as persistence hunters. Why would they use crippling strikes in serious fights? And how do you feel about that? Suspicious. I believe everyone feels suspicious of them. They must have some goals, some plan they are trying to put in place. But I do not know what. And there is... I cut myself off. What I was about to say was an open secret, but nearly forbidden to say. Go on. I know what you are about to say, and I want to hear it. I composed myself. There is a war coming. I answered and probed his face for an emotion, but there was none. The spacefaring races are dividing into grand alliances. Many of these alliances are meant to turn small conflicts into wildfires. This has seemed to stop wars between the major powers as intended, but it could catch the whole galaxy on fire. The humans are an unknown. They could choose to join any alliance, or none, or start their own. How should we respond? How should we try to find out what their plans are, or how they would react if attacked? I considered this. Would it be right to extend logic from our own race to the humans? If so, sometimes you have to provoke a response. They list arresting diplomats. As offensive, we could kill one of their diplomats and observe their response. That may also lead to insights into whatever they are planning. For example, assassinating the person responsible may mean that they wish to operate in the shadows. If they respond by bombing a planet or sinking a ship, that may mean they wish to be a traditional military power but had not decided on how. to exert themselves. Would you recommend this? If the Emperor asked for your counsel, would you advise we kill a Terran diplomat? I don't know, sir. I've never thought about what I may do if I had the ear of the Emperor. If you wish to stay in the military, that may come up. You should consider these things. Regardless, I spoke about this with the rest of the command staff, and they agreed we should kill a Terran diplomat. So I proposed this to the Emperor. Will we be doing this? I went into a panic at the thought of open antagonism of the Terrans. I did my best to contain the twitching of my hair. If they did want to be a major power, they might use this as an excuse to declare war. And it was as I said, the humans had demonstrated an ability to engage in both long-term complex operations and also to find victory when outnumbered. Before starting a fire, make sure you can endure its burn. Already have, and told them. Oh, no? How did they react? Their civilians protested for a response. Some of their allies have offered troops and ships, but they have sent a yacht with another diplomat, with a pair of destroyers a light year behind. They named this expedition the Eisenhower Fleet. What do you make of that? It seems like a clear message. They want to talk, and they will respond to anything else with violence. Very good. Their diplomat will be here shortly. You will take charge of setting up for their arrival. I had set the room for the human ambassadors with a large table, water, sweet drinks, and finger food that was salty or sweet, per their POW. Orientation material. Their diplomat slammed the door open and shouted, "What the hell do you think you are doing?" The general sat in shocked silence for a moment. The ambassador had to have read our orientation material. She should have known that we have our rituals before negotiation, as they do. Still, I found her impressive. She was as the orientation. Material led me to believe she should be. A striking figure with a commanding presence. The diplomat cleared her throat and adopted the calm and measured speech of an ambassador. Am I correct in thinking that you are not familiar with human history? Their diplomat continued without sitting. Something was wrong. She should have wanted to do the small talk ritual and have something to drink and a snack and maybe order a meal. That was in their orientation material. Everyone in the room had read it. Should I be? The general responded with his confident tone. Well, she included an impressive amount of contempt and sarcasm in such a short word before readopting her diplomatic tone. You are the ones who are trying to antagonize us. It would seem to be wise to know what we are about before doing that. Please. The general gestured for her to continue, but his confidence was cracking. Tell me what you are about. Do you know how many wars your species has fought that killed more than 1% of your own population? None. Her tone was flat, calm, poised, diplomatic. I felt my hair twitch all the same. We studied your history as soon as we made contact. You have fought no wars that killed more than 1% of your own population. Before we had electricity, before we had circumnavigated our own planet, and when we had just discovered gunpowder, there was a human warlord who killed 10% of our entire race. The last war the Terrans fought, the Unification War, killed 15% of our species. That is all public information. It's in the orientation material. It's in our history books. And the Unification War showed no signs of stopping or even slowing down. It could have led to our extermination, if not for... A look crossed her face and she paused. I had read the orientation material well, and I knew the expression meant fear. She finished her thought in a hushed tone that I knew also meant unease. Humans don't like saying the names of monsters, so we don't get their attention. She cleared her throat, smoothed her jacket, and placed a 3D projector on the table. I saw the expressions on the faces of the general and the other staff. The changes were too subtle for a Xeno to catch, but the discomfort was clear to me. I want to make sure we all understand something. Her voice had calmed, and the projector created a basic model of a star and began to demonstrate what she explained. Gravity pulls a hydrogen cloud so tight that it begins nuclear fusion, which creates heat, which causes expansion until there is balance, making a star. As the hydrogen is consumed, the balance changes, and then a few things can happen. If the star is big enough, the outward force of fusion may overpower the inward force of gravity. This can cause the star to explode as a supernova, which releases enough energy to obliterate a stellar system. We made a device called, well, We only refer to this monster as the creeping darkness. It can reduce the force of gravity in a localized area just enough for just long enough to cause even a stable main sequence star to become a supernova. The general struggled for the words with no confidence in his voice. You lie! No one could make such a weapon. The human ambassador tapped the 3D projector and it projected a star chart centered on Terra and with a star highlighted. The human faction who developed this device knew that no one would believe them, so they told everyone to watch a particular star. Then they destroyed it and told every faction that if we could not put aside our differences, they would destroy our star. We called this star Alpha Canis Majoris. Look for yourself. I was already pulling up the stellar records for the general. And you have another of these. What do you think we've been doing for the last 3 centuries? Anger returned to the ambassador as she ignored the general's words. Why do you think we've been so eager to tell you our history? Do you think we're proud of almost exterminating ourselves or almost destroying our own world or what it took to end that fucking war? Why do you think we've been trying to calm everyone down and negotiate and avoid war? What did you think? We're afraid of you? We've read as much as we could of the histories of every species we've encountered, and not one of you has managed to fight a war as deadly as what we have. Let me assure you, we are not afraid of you. We are afraid for you, because we know what we have done to ourselves and what we can do now. So you do have another one of these devices? One? She sounded offended. You think one is enough to contain our worst impulses as we've spread into the galaxy? Now, her tone was diplomatic again. Give us the body of our diplomat and apologize in public, or we all may... She had the hushed tone of fear as she finished. Please just give us his body. Hey, everyone! If you enjoy these epic HFY stories, don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and drop a comment below to let us know your favorite part or what stories you'd love to hear next. Your support keeps the channel growing and the stories coming. Thanks for being part of this channel.